Navy funeral honors. Would you please rise? Anyone in or out of uniform prior military are permitted to salute, or you can place your hand over your heart. And salute. You may be seated. On behalf of the President of the United States Navy, and a grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of appreciation for your husband's honorable and faithful service to our country. May God bless you and your family.
Thank you so much.
On behalf of my honor team, man, thank you for making me smile, and thank you for being here today to celebrate your husband's life and our shipment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep it. Mark.
Good afternoon, everybody. Wow, what an appropriate way to start the funeral today. In light of all the troubling situations around the world, particularly in the Jewish community, I think it's wholly appropriate to thank Marvin for his service and for us to recognize this wonderful country, the United States of America, that has welcomed us with open arms, and we've been blessed. And we will only continue to hope and pray that we have many more years of peace and tranquility. I'm Rabbi Leibel Krinsky. I'm the Associate Rabbi at Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens. Only got to know the Zucker family a couple days ago, but feels like I know you guys forever. It's wholly appropriate that Marvin's, whose Hebrew name is Matisyahu, the hero of the Hanukkah story, passed on the first day of Hanukkah. And there's no coincidence, Lila. It's all divine providence. The Torah tells us about Jacob, our forefather, who's actually given the name Yisrael, which is where the nation of Israel comes from Jacob. That when he felt his days were numbered, he called his children together, and they gathered around his bed, and he blessed each and every one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And when his time was about to come, the Torah does not say that he passed. It said, and he was gathered unto his people, Vayasef el Amav. And we're taught, the Talmud teaches us, that indeed Jacob himself did not die. Yes, he did have a funeral. Yes, he was buried. But his spirit did not die. As the Talmud says, Mazaro b'chaim, afu b'chaim. As his descendants are alive. And he had the 12 tribes of Israel. As they are alive, he is as well alive. As I look around the room today, you're surrounded by such a beautiful family. Marvin may be being physically interred in the earth today, but his legacy and his spirit is forever, forever and ever. And it continues with his beautiful family. I think it's the first time that I'm at a funeral where the family said, well, we have a long list of speakers today, so Rabbi, keep it, to a minimum. I'm down for that. We'll start with the most famous psalm, which is the one that's written here on the wall. We'll recite it in English first, and then in Hebrew. Always like to do it in the original Hebrew, as you'll notice. In English, once things are translated, they're translated differently, as opposed to the way it was written originally by King David. But what I love the most about this psalm, and it hits me every time, and it's the most famous verse of the psalm, is, as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death. And if you stop and you think about it, who walks through the valley of the shadow of death? Would you not perhaps run, hide, cower, walk? And this, Lila, is the truth. At the end of the day, even if we're making a decision, that we're making a willing decision, that is perhaps either physically or even spiritually the valley of the shadow of death, even then, Hashem is with us. Hashem is always at our side, and we should never forget that. Even when the going's tough, or particularly when the going's tough. A Psalm of David. Hashem is my shepherd, I shall not lack. He lays me down in lush pastures and leads me beside tranquil waters. He restores my soul. He leads me on the path of justice for his name's sake. Even as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I do not fear evil, for you're with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness chase me all the days of my life, and may I dwell in the house of Hashem for the length of days. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai Roi lo yechsar, Bihinos teshe yarbitzeini, Al mei menuchos yenaleini. Nafshi yoshayevev Yanecheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki yelech begeitz alemaves. Lo irara ki ata himadi shiftecha o mishantecha. Ahai la da da ya ya da 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 da. Hey ma yenachamoni tahara echlefana yesholechan neged etzarirai dihi shaneta vashemen rashi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefani kol yemei chayai v'shaveti b'veis Adonai. Ahai la da da ya ya da 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 liorech yamim. With that, we're going to ask the oldest brother, Michael and Rachel, to get the show on the road.
Morning, Dad. I heard something today that Mom said that she hasn't probably said in 50 years. She said to me, "You look really good today. I like what you're wearing." And I turned to her and I said, "That's because you picked out these clothes." And the reason she picked out these clothes is if you guys look around, most of our family members are either wearing one of my dad's ties, socks, shirts, belts, shoes. We all wanted to bring his colorfulness and his joy into today. So thank you, Dad, for that. Your warm, positive presence will always be in my head. Every day we start off with good morning, and you've always encouraged me to do anything I want, and not only me, but anybody. Any desire we had, any wish, any goal, you were supportive of it. Your office was always open, whether to give an impromptu golf lesson or just lend a non-judgmental ear. There wasn't a topic that was off the table. You're the most approachable and relatable person I know. Your office was always open, not only to me, but to anyone else in your life. I hope that I emulate that character trait from you as always being available. In fact, one of my new nicknames is ORZ, which means One Ring Zucker, because apparently I'm always picking up the phone when somebody calls or responding to a text. I remember when I was cut from my high school basketball team in my junior year of high school. That night, I was visibly upset. You came into my room and just said, "You have 36 hours." I looked at you, I said, "For what?" He said, "You have 36 hours to feel sorry for yourself. And then you should start training to make the team next year." And I said, "Dad, you don't get it. Nobody who gets cut their junior year makes it their senior year. It just doesn't happen." And he said to me, "You'll be the first." And he walked out of the room. After that conversation, my whole perspective changed. As many of you know, I made the team my senior year. And Dad, there's no way that happens without our 20-second discussion. Your strong, soft-spoken personality would fill a room. Whether it would be anywhere in Frenchman's Creek or Scarsdale, people would always seek you out for a friendly hello and a warm smile. You always led with your actions, always being there for Mark, Lori, and me when we were kids. You would show up at the center in Riverdale on Saturdays at exactly 4 o'clock for the foul shooting contest after working until 3 o'clock, so we can pay to go to the center. And not only did you show up, but you participated in it. And by the way, you were 25 years older than anybody else in the gym. When we were kids, you were always at bowling, baseball, and basketball games for Mark and me, or going to ice skating, gymnastics, ballet, or cheerleading events for Lori. I don't know how you did it, but you were always present. I took that blueprint and ran with it in my life with my 4 kids, Shelby, Nicole, Ben, and Julia. Dad, you were ahead of your time. Your actions always set the tones. You and Mom created such an amazing family filled with love and inclusivity. Everyone was always invited, and everyone was always welcome. Hosting holidays was always filled with family and friends. And dancing. Did I mention that yet? Boy, did you like to dance. Always the life of the party. Being a contestant in Dancing with the Stars at Frenchman's Creek, you stole the show. And if anybody wants to see the video, my mom will proudly show it to you. In your later days, I always knew that after about 30 seconds of me singing Rapper's Delight at a wedding or family function, that you would always dance your way up and stand right next to me, even though you never knew the words. You always mouthed the lyrics just to show your support. Each of my 4 kids had their own special relationship with you. You were always a safe space for them. You would always be laughing and smiling with them. Your relationship with Rachel is so heartwarming to me. The 2 of you have such a special bond. Listening to the 2 of you speak in Spanish with each other and always laughing would warm my heart. You guys would laugh so hard that one day I said to myself, I wonder if they're laughing at me. Dad, we're so happy to be here and with you. We love you, and we know you're in a good place. Enjoy the back 9 of your life.
Hi. Today, we honor a man who brought light into every room he entered, my father-in-law, Marvin Zucker, the man who I lovingly called the mayor, or in more recent time, Mi Guapo Mayor. From the first time I met him and Lila, they welcomed me into their family and treated me as if I belonged from the start. That gift meant more to me than words can say, and I will carry that with me forever. He always made me smile and made my days brighter just by being around. In recent days, our nightly FaceTime calls were the highlight of my day. His relationship with Michael made my heart so warm. The connection they shared was truly something special, a bond that shaped so much of who he is today. As the patriarch of this family, he set the tone of connection, love, and belonging, which is so evident by the Zucker clan in this room today. I feel so lucky to have known him and to be part of this family.
I think my son Zach said it best when he was 2 or 3 years old, when he started calling my dad Grandpa Marvelous. Everyone who knew him called him Marvelous. That really sums up who he was. He really was just an incredible, marvelous guy. My friend Dweck always called him Marvin Zinger, king of the one-liners. No one had better one-liners than him, and you're going to hear a whole bunch over the next few minutes. Marvelous Marv was born in Rockaway, 1936. He didn't have a middle name, and if you asked him why, he would tell you.
You didn't need one.
Couldn't afford one. He had 2 sisters, 5 years and 9 years older than him. And after they were in Rockaway, they moved to Washington Heights in Manhattan, right near the George Washington Bridge when he was 7. He grew up in a Jewish, Irish, Italian neighborhood. He loved to do his accents, as Rachel talked about, Mayor Guapo Mayor. And he would always say, Mark, the Irish, they lived on 148th Street. He could never say 148th Street without saying 148th Street. He skipped 3rd grade. When they moved to Washington Heights, apparently his school district was not so great. One of the teachers called up his mother on day 2 and said, he doesn't belong in the school, get him out of here. And she said, where should we go? He said, send him to yeshiva. So he went to yeshiva. He's probably the only yeshiva student in the history that went not because he was interested or his parents mandated it, but because there wasn't a good school system where he was living. He played stickball and street hockey. Hockey was his game. He tried to get his kids into it. We just never really got that into it. I'll never forget when Mike started skating in Central Park in his mid-20s and he was wearing the rollerblades. He came up to Scarsdale and he was skating on the driveway and Dad goes, let me put those on. And he put them on and he started skating backwards and forwards up and down the driveway. We looked at him like, we had no idea you had that talent. He's like, I played hockey my whole life. He was on a famous hockey line of 3 guys, Yo, Mo, and Bo. He was really proud of that. He was Mo. I guess Marvin somehow became Mo. He was a lifelong Cardinals fan, which is really unusual for a guy growing up in New York City. There were 16 or 18 teams at the time, and he picked, and 3 of them were in New York. So you were either a Yankee, Dodger, or Giant fan. And when I asked him why, I said, Dad, how did you become a Cardinal fan? He said, my dad always told me to root for a winner. And when I decided it was time to pick a team, he looked in the paper and the Cardinals were in first place, so he became New York City's only St. Louis Cardinal fan. He loved Stan Musial, that was his guy, and one of his lifelong dreams was actually meeting him. I mean, Stan was the man, he was a great guy. After high school, my dad signed up for the Navy. He took the swimming test. He dog paddled across the first lap, started sinking on the way back, and they grabbed the hook and they hooked it on the back of his shorts and pulled him across because they needed guys in the Navy. His thinking was, if we're off the Navy and we're in the Atlantic or Pacific, does it really matter if I can swim? He was a radio operator. He was on the USS Des Moines. It was a cruiser with the big guns, and he had great experience. He would do the Morse code, that was his thing. And as he told me many times, he goes, do you think I was going to do the manual labor? He goes, I found a nice office job. I did well on the assessment. They said, you, sailor, go into the office. He was very happy. Him and my mom were introduced by a mutual friend when my mom was 15. She lied about her age, said she was, how old, Mom? 18. He was 21. Oh, sorry, he was 18. He lied about his age, and how old did he say he was? 21. That's how they met. They told a lie, but hey, it worked out pretty great. They wrote letters while he was in the Navy. They numbered their letters so they could keep in touch and make sure they didn't miss anything. And the romance bloomed when he was back. They got married in 1959. Right before that, he started Capri Album in 1957. So he was 21 years old, came out of the Navy, didn't really know what to do. His dad had a picture, he was in the picture frame business. His mom's family had leather goods, and he just kind of figured out a way to put them together and started Capri Album. When I asked him once, why Capri? I'm like, we're not Italian. He's like, well, at the time, the Lincoln Capri was the nicest car, and I wanted to be known as a company that makes really good quality. He was very close with his dad. His dad had a heart attack when his dad was in his early 40s and wasn't able to work. So when my dad started Capri, his dad would often come down with him. They spent a lot of time, and he told me a lot of stories about them palling around and how his dad was really his mentor and the wise old guy in the room that you referred to with the open door. He didn't know it at the time, but for the first 5, 6, 7 years of his business, his uncle, his mom's brother, was stealing from him. He couldn't figure out, my dad was a whiz in math. I mean, he could do calculations in his head. He could tell you his golf scores, the mean, the average, year by year, season by season, which course he played, and he couldn't figure out why he wasn't making any money. until eventually he caught his uncle stealing, and things started doing a whole lot better. Marv was a natural entrepreneur. He never read any books. He didn't go to entrepreneurial classes. He just kind of figured things out. You know, he figured out that in his business there was a bunch of competitors. Nobody was delivering albums quick, and he figured out that if he delivered albums faster than everybody, he would have a unique selling point. Not his words, but that was classic entrepreneurship. He always knew how to talk to people. He was great with customers. He was great with vendors. His employees adored him. He was Mr. Marvin, and then he became Mr. Zucker, or Mr. Z, depending on how your accent was. He had a lot of nicknames, and he answered all of them. Most of his staff was Spanish-speaking, so he learned how to speak Spanish. He always spoke what we used to call album Spanish. Put him in an album factory, he can tell you anything. He knew all the verbs, he knew all the machinery. He was pretty good outside, but he really shined in the album factory. His album Spanish was great. Album Spanish. As kids, every once in a while, as a treat, we would go down and visit him in the factory, and it just smelled like glue, and for a bunch of, I don't know, however old we were, 6, 9, and 10, it was just the coolest thing going to Dad's factory, and everybody would stop us and pat us on the head and show us what they did, and we just thought it was really cool, and Lori, who knew one day we'd end up working with him? So he got married in '59 to Lila, the love of his life. They moved to Riverdale. I always say my parents, it was a mixed marriage. He was from Rockaway and Manhattan. She was from Brooklyn. They ended up in the Bronx and Riverdale and lived there for a lot of years. That's where we all grew up, we meaning my siblings and I. Michael was born in 1961. I was born a year later, and as my dad always tells me, he loves telling this story, they were so poor because his uncle was stealing from him at the time, which he didn't know. He didn't have enough money to pay the bill to take me out of the hospital. So he signed a 2-year note with the hospital. He had to pay him $5 every month. And he said, Mark, when I paid the first payment, I'm like, all right, I owe you 4.25%. And then I owe you 8.5%. And then I owe you 12%. And he says, when I finally made that last payment, I owned my son free and clear. He also, my middle name is Edward. He named me after his Uncle Eddie because at the time Uncle Eddie was doing really well and he figured it would be worth a big check, and it was, and he was really happy. I don't think he had much of a relationship with Uncle Eddie, but he was very strategic. He needed the money. Lori was born in 1965. By then he had caught his uncle stealing. Things were good. There was no pressure. He didn't have to sign a note to get you out of the hospital, which was a good thing. I think the accounting said, "Are you good this time, Mr. Zucker?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. We're okay." Marv worked a lot of hours, but he always found time for his kids, as Mike said. I mean, he was the dad who was at the we used to call it the center. It was our junior high school where we used to play basketball on Saturdays and Sundays, and he would always show up for the free throw shooting contest, and every one of our friends knew our dad. And he would participate. He'd get in there and shoot 5 free throws with us, and it was just really fun. Some other great memories growing up, Sunday morning. So Saturday he was usually working, or when it got nicer out and he had discovered golf, he was golfing. Sunday was his day to sleep. He would not get out of the bed until I scratched his back. So he would lay there, and I would listen to him go, "Rrr, rrr." And after a certain sound, I knew he was good, and then it was time to go get him bagels. So Michael's job was, we had a bagel store 3 blocks away. Michael got the bagels because he liked his hot bagels. One time I pinch hit for him, and I just took a leisurely walk back, and I handed him the bagels, and he goes, "Mark, the bagels are cold." I go, "Well, they were hot when I picked them up." He goes, "Go back and get me hot bagels." So I went back to the store, I put the bagels under my jacket, and I sprinted home, and I came back panting, all sweaty. He goes, "That's how you bring me back bagels on Sunday." I remember once I was probably in 5th or 6th grade, I was homesick, and I called him up and I said, "Dad, I'm bored." He was in the middle of doing something. He did not want to hear that. He says, "I'll tell you what, here's what you're going to do. Go count how many walls there are in our apartment, and then call me back." So I'm going through our apartment, and we had a walk-in closet. I'm like, does this count as a wall? Is he going to test me? Is there a right answer? So I call him up. I go, "Dad, there's 47. He goes, good. Find one you like and go bang your head against it. I never called him to tell him I was bored. On my 5th grade report card, we'd get 3 report cards. The first one and the second one they'd bring home, the parents had to sign. Apparently my second one wasn't so good. My teacher said, quote, Mark has 9 toes out the door, he's in trouble. My dad not only signed but wrote her a paragraph with a performance improvement plan on how I was not going to slide backwards and I was going to get back in her good graces.
How'd that work out?
In 1974, we took a family driving trip to Florida. It was right after he started playing golf, and he became obsessed. Anytime we'd pass by a golf course or a driving range, he would roll down the window and go, thwack, 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 thwack. Thwack, the sound of a ball, club hitting a ball. He was obsessed, but it was hilarious. Marv was an early riser. He was a morning person. And when we were on this family road trip, he would wake us up every morning. So first he'd go over to Mike, pull the covers off of him and go, let's get the show on the. And then he'd go by me and he'd go, let's get the show on the. And then Lori, let's get the show on the road. Da ba ba, ya da 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 da. So that became his catchphrase. We're still trying to figure out if it was a Broadway show, if it was a recorded song. We don't know. So if anybody knows, let us know. Maybe it was just a Marvinism. He loved music. He loved Sinatra. My Way was his favorite. Lila tells a story about when he first heard it. He was rolling down the windows and singing and doing his thing. He loved that. He loved Aretha Franklin. He loved Elton John. When Elton John came out with the song Philadelphia Freedom in the mid-'70s, that may have been his all-time favorite song. He's like, Mark, you gotta listen to this. And every time it came on the clock radio, because back then we couldn't just go to Spotify, he would just go insane. Just loved music. He loved to dance. He bowled in a league for a short time. He got Mike and I into bowling. We followed suit. We used to bowl in a league. He prided himself on being the only guy in the bowling league who didn't drink. And he said, Dad, he'd say, Mark, by the 3rd game, everybody's drunk, and I'm just kicking their ass. 1977, we moved to Scarsdale, got out of the city. He was so happy. Him and Lila made so many great friends. I mean, it was just amazing. They fell in with a great friend group. Some of you are here. They would meet every Saturday morning at the Heathcote Deli and solve the world's problems. And this was like a 4-hour lunch. People would just rotate in and out. At that time, he also met Paul Ribner, who became his best friend. These 2 guys were inseparable. And Paul unfortunately passed in his early 50s, but that was my dad's soul brother. And I got a nice text from his daughter saying, boy, heaven's going to get a whole lot rowdier with those 2 back together. A few years later, they joined Brayburn, and he met a whole other group of friends, just a lot of golf. Marv loved golf. One of his famous lines to me, I'll never forget, when I was writing a paper, I was typing a paper in high school, and he come by. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm writing a paper. He goes, when's it due? I go, tomorrow. He goes, oh, last minute Charlie. That was one of his famous lines. Everything always had a Charlie at the end. And then if I ever turned in a report card, which wasn't so great, which was quite often, he'd always say, oh, you're going to be the 3rd guy in the back of the garbage truck? Come on, you got to get in the game. Always with an accent, always just a nice way to deliver the message. After I graduated college, I was in advertising, and I did a little bit of work for Capri Album, which was fun. I got to go to trade shows with him and go with my mom, saw a whole different side of him. Now he's my dad, but we're working together. And then in 2 years after that, I ended up joining Capri and working with him for 7 years, which was incredible. I mean, to be with him every day, we had adjoining offices. It was, I got all the stories. He'd tell me all the stories about the early days when he started the business, and he was the cook chief and bottle washer. They'd make the albums, and he'd go make the rounds, and he didn't have time to eat, so he'd grab a sandwich, and he had a bottle of Yoo-Hoo between his legs while he was steering with his knees and spilling Yoo-Hoo all over his clothes. And, he just loved telling me the old stories. He just wanted me to understand that it wasn't always this good. it was really hard back in the day, and life was tough, and the building had no heat, and the elevator broke, and life was bad, which I know it was. It wasn't so great. I remember overhearing him once negotiating with a vendor, and he says, "Wait, do you realize that my last name starts with a Z and not with an S?" He says, "Who do you think you're talking to?" Sucker. He was trying to tell him in a nice way, I'm not a sucker. My favorite story of Marv working is he got appointed to a New York City Business Owners Commission when Mayor Dinkins was the mayor. So there were about 20 business owners, mostly guys. They met at Gracie Mansion for lunch. Lila was getting him all dressed up and probably one of the shirts that we're all wearing. He looked great. And as an icebreaker, they went around the room and said, "Hey, why doesn't everybody just tell us what they like, what they love about New York City?" I think he went last, not because they were seated alphabetically, although that could have happened. And when they got to Marv, he said, "What I really like about New York City is seeing it in my rearview mirror when I drive home to the suburbs." He was never invited back to the commission to serve a second year. What I learned in working with him, too, is we have a lot of the same quirks, a lot of the same similarities. We walk the same. We kind of have the same build. We eat fruit every morning for breakfast. We eat pretzels after dinner. We scratch our back on the corner of a wall while we're talking to you. We just have a lot of the same quirks, and it was just so much fun working with him. I'll never forget one time, he came by my office, running into my office. I said, "What's the matter?" He goes, "I got to pee so bad, my eyeballs are turning yellow." Where does he come up with this stuff? It was just one-liner, one after another. My dad loved to dance, as Michael said. Every wedding, every mitzvah was a dance fest. I'll never forget at my wedding in 1990, after the cocktail hour, everybody filtered into the reception. The band played a great dance list for 30 minutes, and then it stopped. And he came up to me behind me, started, shaking my shoulders. "Mark, what's going on?" I go, "What do you mean, Dad?" He goes, "Why'd the music stop?" I said, "Dad, we're having salad." And he said, "Fuck the salad, get the band back up here." And that became our mantra for the next 30, 40 years, F the salad. And we didn't dance, we didn't have dinner, and that was typical of what happens at a Zucker party. He probably would have said the same thing about the attire that we're all wearing today. He probably would have said, F the black and white and the conservative attire, let's have some fun, let's wear some colors. In the early 90s, all of his kids got married, and before you knew it, there were 8 grandkids, and the family doubled in a very short period of time. When Zach was born, his first grandson, I said, "Dad, what do you want to be called? Do you want to be Poppy? You want to be Grandpa? What do you want?" He goes, "I want to be Granddad." I said, "What? We are not a granddad kind of family." And then, of course, Zach named him Grandpa Marvelous, and I said a few years later, "Granddad or Grandpa Marvelous?" He's like, "Yeah, I guess you were right there. You had me." He loved his grandkids. He created a fictitious character called Moshe Zeigemacher and used to tell them bed stories in a German accent. I'm sure some of the kids will talk about that in their eulogies. He also him and my mom set up college funds for all the kids, which was incredible. And, who knew the cost of college was going to be 8 times what it was at the time he started it. So that was just not only incredibly generous, but incredibly thoughtful. Marv hated the winter. We had an annual party at Capri Album in April called Thank God the Winter's Over. I don't know of another company that's ever done that. His dream all along was to go to Florida. Him and my mom bought a place in 1997 in Frenchman's where they've been for a long time, met even more friends, played a lot of golf, fueled his golf obsession, became the golf chairman, was on the boards. He tried his best to get Michael and I into golf. In our teens and early 20s, he'd take us to the driving range. We're busy goofing around and playing games, and one day he saw the guy collecting the balls, the cart with the iron cage, and he's like, "All right, let's see who can hit the guy in the cart." And the 3 of us, in sync, turned and went, all aim for the guy, and he figured if he made it fun, maybe we would embrace the game. To this day, that is our tradition. when any Zuckers, and I probably shouldn't say this because he was the golf chairman, we'd have to be very careful about how we did it at Frenchman's when the guy came up and he was like, all right, maybe I'll just look like I'm slicing the ball. We were always trying to ring the guy's bell. He was great to play golf with. He had 20/15 vision. He could find your ball no matter how far off the green or off the fairway you hit it. But I always said to him, you said, Dad, you're the greatest guy to be around all the time, but you're really too serious when you play golf. You're honestly not that much fun. And he would just you've seen it, he just gets into golf mode. The only time he ever smiled or laughed when he played golf is he had a 5-wood in his old golf clubs. It was a McGregor. And whenever he pulled it out of his bag, he'd go, oh, me McGregor. Let me try to hit me McGregor. That was the only time he ever smiled. And every time he got a new set of clubs, he always gave me his old ones, hoping that one day I would get the bug. Never did. I still have the McGregor, and at some point I will pass the McGregor on to my boys or any of the grandkids who take up the game of golf. I'm almost done. Couple of more one-liners. Whenever somebody was excited about something, he goes, what are you all hot in the ass about? A couple of years ago, I hadn't seen him in a few months. I put on a little weight. He pointed to my stomach and he goes, who's your new friend? What, did you have to buy a plane ticket for him? And then he would always end stories with, yeah, and when he didn't want to finish the story, he'd go, and a deedly, 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 and that was the way he spoke. So the last few years, as you can imagine, were a little hard. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, dementia. It's not a great illness. And to see a guy who is so smart, so sharp, so full of life, change was really hard. I do want to give my sister Lori an incredible shout out. 13 years ago, when her and Bob got married, during their vows, which were almost as long or even longer than my eulogy, Bob talked about Lori's warrior spirit. I didn't fully understand what he was talking about until I've seen the way she's been taking care of both of my parents. Lori, you are incredible. Lori's got a separate calendar of mom's appointments, dad's appointments. She could probably come here and tell you every medication, the spelling of every doctor's names, which ones are in New York, which are in Florida. She's just handled everything, and it's just been such an incredible, incredible tank commander, as Ariel called her. So thank you for that. I also want to give a shout out to Leilani. Where is Leilani? Leilani's been his primary caregiver for a year and a half, and she has been a saint. It's not easy taking care of somebody with what my dad's going through, and there's all the different variations and iterations of it, which were not fun, but she was there from the beginning when we said, hey, we're going to go to New York. My parents are going to go to New York in June for a bat mitzvah for a week or two. Are you okay with that? 2.5 months later, they were still there, and Leilani was just amazing. And I also want to give a shout out to Lulu, Bert, and Charlene, who is relatively new to us, but who has been amazing. Poppy, I always called him Poppy, not P-O-P-P-Y, P-A-P-I, Spanish, because we used to speak Spanish. Or if we didn't speak Spanish, we would speak English with a Spanish accent. That was just our shtick. My dad had a lot of shtick. So Poppy, I will miss you. I am so fortunate to call you my Poppy. I love you to death. And I will wear your shirts and eat Poppy bagels and do all the other things to honor you. You will always be in my heart. And one other last thing I wanted to say, just to go out of order. When Cherry and I first started dating, he loved her instantly. In fact, when we used to FaceTime, he's like, all right, enough of you. Put her on the, can I see her? He's like, I much prefer to look at you and talk to you than talk to my son. He always had such affinity for you. I know you know that. He loved you to death, and he was so happy that we were together and that you made his boy happy. So I will turn it over to Lori. And Bob.
Remind me to never present after Mark at a funeral.
All right, I'm going to try to go without glasses. All right, I'm showing my age. All right, here they come. My dad graduated with double honors in authenticity and humanity. He made it look so easy to be kind, generous, and be a great listener. He always made you feel like you were the most important person in the world. People would always come up to me and say, "I love your dad." I don't think they said it because I was the daughter. I think people just felt that about Dad. In high school, I would call him from a payphone every day just to say hello, even though I would see him just a few hours later at home. I just needed a little dose of Dad. When Dad and I talked about the possibility of me joining Capri, I thought, what could be more boring than manufacturing photo albums? And by the way, I had no qualifying skills. What I quickly learned was that everything Dad knew about business and manufacturing was self-taught. He used logic to problem solve. He showed by example how to gain qualifying skills. Who loves their boss? Mr. Z, as he was affectionately called by his employees, was loved and revered. He was approachable and reasonable in both Spanish and English. And everyone loved to salsa and merengue with him at our annual holiday party. The highlight of our day was where we would go for lunch. Can you imagine working with someone all day and then having lunch with them? It was a privilege to work side by side with Dad for 21 years. I got an upgrade on my little dose of Dad. It was no surprise that when we moved to Florida, we bought a house just a few miles away. I guess you could say I have always followed in my dad's path. There's nothing more fitting than sharing mine and Bob's wedding anniversary with this special day of tribute for Dad. I believe it's something that forever bonds our love and our friendship. Dad, I love you in the most profound and authentic way.
Thanks, sweetie. Why not? Raise your hand. This is the interactive portion of the... Raise your hand if you remember a time when you heard that phrase from Marvin throughout your lifetime. Why not? Thank you. Why not symbolizes Marvin's positive outlook on life. He didn't have to overthink important questions. He let things unfold naturally and was his true self. Like my true self is to wear my glasses on my head and not use them. Because he asked for so little, he allowed so much to be. And he celebrated who we are and what we would become, especially his children and his grandchildren. Marvin would brag to me all the time when he got texts from you all about the things that you were doing in your life, and he was so proud of them. What an honor and privilege it is to share our wedding day with a day of tribute to Marvin. So today, let's celebrate Marvin's memory because... Why not? Thank you. Okay.
If you've ever met Marvin, he was likely smiling ear to ear, cracking witty jokes, and making ridiculous facial expressions with the sole intention of making you laugh. While quite the jokester, there are 3 characteristics that stick out to me when reflecting on my grandpa's life and his impact on his grandkids. Grandpa exemplified hard work and never giving up. Whether it was performing in school or trying out for a new sport, he was always a calm, steady presence, reminding us to try our best, and if it didn't work out, try again. That same determination built Capri Albums from nothing more than an idea. Grandma and Grandpa worked tirelessly, even pretending to be different people on vendor calls just to make the company sound bigger than it was. Shout out Mike Thomas from Telemarketing and Debbie King in Collections. He was the golf guru, spending years on the driving range with us from a young age. Although he didn't exactly love our Happy Gilmore reenactments or using the ball guy for target practice. When I came to him my senior year of high school and told him I wanted to try out for the golf team, he laughed and said, "Shelby, we only have 7 days together." But without hesitation, he showed up on the course with me every single day, determined, until I made the team. The second characteristic being his financial wisdom and forward-thinking nature. From a very young age, Grandpa's always been our financial North Star, teaching us the value of $1. When Nicole and I turned 6 years old, we received bonds for our birthday. Naturally, we were devastated. But Grandpa wasn't thinking about toys and near-term satisfaction. He was thinking about our future. The following year, instead of the Star Wars Lego set I really wanted, we got stock in Smuckers. And if you've ever been grocery shopping with him, you'd find him quietly moving the Smuckers jelly to the front of the aisle, trying to increase the likelihood of someone buying it over another brand. He was always thinking about our future and creating the financial stability he didn't have growing up. Lastly, Grandpa, or Moshe Zagamaha, had a rare gift to make each of his grandkids feel deeply loved and uniquely special. Over the weekend, I found 2 voicemails he left for me on my birthday in 2022 and 2023. Both started with a snarky remark about me not answering my phone because I was too tired or too busy. But in one, he said, "I looked down at my phone and you're the only person I saved as Shelby. No last name, no Zucker, just Shelby. So I guess there's a special place in my heart for you. And who knows, maybe you'll call me back." That was Grandpa, sharp, witty, and endlessly loving. Rest easy, Gramps. We promise to keep building the Zucker legacy, to work hard, think ahead, and take care of one another. Most of all, we promise to continue making you proud.
Gramps, it's hard to imagine this family without you at the center of it. You had the biggest smile and an even bigger heart, and you were truly the patriarch of this family. From mornings at the 19th hole to afternoons at the beach club, the annual turkey trot musical chair game, and our times at the driving range, you were always the happiest just being with us. Even when I was swinging like Happy Gilmore and Oka over here, one club Ariel, you were quietly judging us and our form, but you never stopped smiling. Those simple moments are the ones I'll carry with me forever. Going anywhere with you meant stopping every few steps because someone always knew you. You were a local celebrity, and some might even call you a mayor. And who could forget the time I ran into you at the nail salon when I was in 5th grade, and you were sitting there proudly getting a fresh manicure. Most 5th graders may have been embarrassed to see their grandfather at the local nail salon, but I wasn't. I love being your granddaughter. One of the greatest lessons you taught all of us was the importance of showing up. You lived that every single day. You never missed a beat for your kids or for your grandkids. You are the reason my dad is the incredible father he is, because he learned from the very best. I didn't write this down because I thought someone else was going to say this, but another lesson he taught us was that if you have dinner with someone at 6 and they show up late, it's not your fault if you want to start eating. It's okay. None of this would have been possible also without Grandma by your side. The love and life you built together is the foundation of this family and something we will always look up to. We will miss you for the rest of our lives. We love you so much, Gramps.
To the patriarch, marvelous, grandpapa, starvin' Marvin, Marvin Gardens, the many other nicknames that we all knew him by. You were one of the few people I've ever met who, no matter the circumstance, always seemed to have a smile on your face. That smile made people feel welcome, comfortable, and understood. It was your quiet way of reminding us that things would be okay, even when they didn't feel that way. At a young age, for better or for worse, you taught me what it truly means to stick by your team through thick and thin. Whether it was your love for Stan the Man Musial or teaching me about Ozzie Smith doing backflips, your devotion to the Cardinals wasn't just about baseball. It was a lesson in loyalty, about standing by what you love and believing in it, no matter what the outcome. I think a big reason my relationship with my dad is so close because of the relationship that you had with him when he was my age. The example that you set carried forward. About 5 years ago, I actually started calling my dad Pop, which is coincidentally what my dad called Marv.
It's a small detail, but it feels like one of these invisible threads that connects generations, something passed down without anyone ever realizing it. You didn't just build a family, you built a legacy of love, humor, loyalty, and togetherness. And because of that, I'll always be proud to be a Zucker, not soccer. And I also have a few words from my mother's grandpa that he would like me to read really quickly. Marvin and I both grew up in the streets of New York City. We, of course, did not know each other. We lived worlds apart, Brooklyn and Queens. That was back in the 30s and 40s, back when the city had 3 baseball teams, 7 newspapers, and a subway that cost a nickel a ride. But from that day we met 35 years ago, we knew we had a common thread, love of family and love of life. Marvin's attributes, kindness, generosity, and respectfulness. I could go on and on. Marvin left us too soon, but his legacy lives on, and Lila and all of us are for the better for it. With eternal love, Jerry and Mona.
Sorry. Okay. Gramps didn't need to be the loudest person in the room or the center of attention. Somehow, he just was without trying. When he spoke, he commanded the room. When he told a story, he would have the entire table completely locked in. He had a sharp, sarcastic wit and could crack me up with just a look or a perfectly timed one-liner. Teasing was his love language, making fun of you just enough so you knew you were always loved. And when he laughed with his whole face, making it impossible not to laugh with him. He was the leader of the pack, the most respected. Everyone here looked up to him and still does. And all of our cousins, the way we joke, banter, tease, and love each other so deeply, that comes from him. He set that tone. Because of him, we are so close. Because of him, we are a unit. And because of him, nothing can ever break us apart. Even when he wasn't feeling great or when things weren't perfect, he always found the joy. He truly took advantage of life, the stylish outfits, the smiles, the laughter, the dancing, the singing, the small moments that mattered most. His energy was magnetic. People were drawn to him, and you always just felt better being around him. Thank you, Gramps, for being the best dad to my dad. Because of you, I have the best dad in the entire world. You always showed up, you taught us to care deeply, to look after one another, and to find laughter even when it's hard. We'll carry that with us forever, and we'll keep swinging Sweet Caroline forever. Love you.
All right, yeah, we're gonna keep this one short. I'm gonna do a kind of like a tight 45 minutes real quick. Follow my grandpa and my dad. No, I think just all of us, the fact that there's 8 of us here and all of the kids, everybody wants to speak, just shows this man's character and how much we all love Grandpa. Marvelous, I mean, we've said it all, marvelous. Moishe Zagamacha, all of his one-liners, seeing him eat pretzels with ice cream and different rice cakes, but different flavors, and it had to be particular, otherwise it wasn't right, but then if it was right, it was the best thing that ever happened, and this was, he's just the best guy. I think all of us love each other the way that he loved all of us, to see it go to his kids and to now the grandkids. And yeah, I love this man so much. He taught me, I love in all these different stories tonight, you're kind of learning all the different ways he's influenced us as an entertainer, as a business person, as a family man, as a friend. You know, you couldn't drive anywhere in Frenchman's without him waving at somebody, and then it would either be like, oh my God, that's the best guy ever, or someone would pass me, like, this fucking guy right here, you know, like. But he'd do it with a big smile, he'd wave, he's like, hey. But it's true. He just had a love for life, and I hope I continue to take that with me everywhere I go, in whatever we do, whatever any of us do. I feel like we are riddled with Marvin, the way he tells stories, the way he just can light up a room and make every moment feel so special. And I was with Ben and Julia last night, and we were talking about how I think everybody in this room is like, oh yeah, Marvin loves everybody. But I have that special connection with Marvin. And the thing is we all do. And that is the beauty of him, is that everybody does have a unique, special relationship with him. And they were all equal, and they were all more important than the others, but they were all the same and all entirely different. And
But mine was the most important.
yeah. Let's go. This fucking guy. No, siblings. No, but I love you, Gramps. I love you, Marvelous. You are the best. I hope to continue to make you proud. And every moment with you was incredible. And I love you so much. And I love you, Grandma.
Grandpa and I played a lot of golf growing up, but Grandpa, I have to confess, I never liked golf. I just love spending time with you. And everyone knows that Grandpa was just such a joy to be around. He was the happiest person I've ever known. He knew how to inject life into and joy into any situation, no matter how ordinary or difficult. Earlier this year, when Grandpa had to go to the emergency room, and it was one of the scariest moments of my life to think I almost lost him. But in true Grandpa spirit, within a couple hours, he was awake, cracking jokes, and not long after, he was walking, but he wasn't just walking. He had like 8 nurses around him, and they're all dancing two-step throughout the whole ER. 3 days ago, I asked Grandpa how he was feeling, and he said back to me, "Wonderful." This is who Grandpa was. He was obsessed with life and lived for each and every second. When I was little, we would go to the beach club, obviously, and I would always get a Dove bar in the afternoon after lunch. His grandpa would call them Doug bars. And the rule was that I could have my Doug bar, but I had to give Grandpa biteage. One time, Grandpa caught me with a Doug bar, and he said to me, "Hey, where's my bite?" And I told him, "Grandpa, I know the code now. I don't need you anymore." But I couldn't have been more wrong. The world was a happier place with you in it, and I miss you so much.
So Uncle Mark told me that they put me last because Grandma said I couldn't speak for a half an hour. And she told me on the way here, "Ariel, remember, do not speak for a half an hour." So Grandma, I won't. But oddly enough, I think for the first time in my life, I'm like genuinely speechless. Sorry. Many of you know that Grandpa and I learn Torah together every week. But I don't think that anyone knows that for years, Grandpa and I would also email each other back and forth throughout the week. He was like my favorite pen pal. He would email me stories that popped into his mind, and I would send him articles to read. And around 6 years ago, I emailed him an article written by Rabbi David Aaron, where the rabbi explains that the greatest accomplishment that we can achieve in this world is to know and feel God in everyone and in everything. Pretty lofty goal that we should really all be so blessed to reach. But in classic Grandpa form of always seeing the world with such simple positivity and goodness, no matter the circumstances or situation, replies to my email saying, "The more I see and read, the more I agree. What other explanation could there be than to see all the wonderful things around us?" He literally couldn't see anything else. And that's our grandpa, a force of unabating positivity, laughter, and joy. And he had that perspective until his very last breath. I thought you were going to take my line, because a few days ago, I asked him how he was feeling.
We both asked it.
Did we both ask it? Oh. And when he could hardly speak, he says to me, "I couldn't be better." And that's our grandpa. On his 88th birthday, I asked him to share some reflections, as I usually do on everyone's birthday, and everyone gets annoyed with me. And he said, I wrote this down because I wanted to remember it. He said, "Being here for all these years and being able to see my children and their children grow and expand and see the way that they treat me, I just see that I did a good thing." And you did, Grandpa. You did a great thing. You held true to your namesake, Matisyahu, who led the Maccabees in the Hanukkah story and fought for Jews to remain Jewish and hold on to their holy and deep traditions. And so too you, Grandpa, are such a fighter for truth and good, and how apropos that you, Matisyahu, fought to make it to Hanukkah so that we could light the menorah with you one last time. We should all be so blessed to have people love us the way that we love you. And even more so, we should all have hearts that have the capacity to love as wholly and unconditionally as you. I love you so much, and I'm so proud to be your granddaughter. May your neshama soul have the highest aliyah.
Okay, she wasn't actually last, so that's awkward.
All right, that's what they told me. I don't know.
Marvin was my Florida grandpa, our Florida grandpa, and highly recommend that you get a grandpa in the state you'll be in a lot of the time. One time I was coming home from college on the Bright Line. Any Bright Line people? Okay. And it was like very dark and very sketchy, and the West Palm Bright Line station, I'm guessing no one in this room has been to, but it was scary. And I was like waiting for my dad, and all of a sudden Marvin comes around the corner in his car. And I have never felt so safe in that moment. I knew everything would be all right. I also feel like we would have made a really good buddy cop movie. Marvin had an aura that drew people towards him, and I noticed it from the moment I first met him. He was the type of person you wanted to be around and you wanted to sit next to and talk to, and it was very refreshing and kind of surprising that he had such a dry and sometimes dark sense of humor, which I really enjoyed. And I would love just sitting next to him at Frenchman's and cracking jokes, and I'm like, wow, are we doing this right now? Like you and me? Such a pointed towards the light person. And I'll just say lastly that I really do believe that anyone you love in life, that creates a bond between you, and that the act of loving someone creates like a metaphysical bond. And I don't think that's something that can be destroyed. Like literally the laws of matter mean that that cannot be destroyed. And I think that connects all of us to Marvin eternally, like Rabbi was saying. So if that brings you any comfort, I really believe that he'll always be connected to us and we can call on him whenever we need him. Love you, Marvin.
So,
a few of us are children of a divorce here, but as a child of divorce, hey, am I right? Since we were teenagers at the time, I think we were old enough to understand some of the complexities, I guess, of what that might mean. And part of that is learning who Lori's parents are, including Lila, of course. So getting to know Marvin and Lila and seeing the kind of people they are was honestly a relief, first and foremost, because I knew my dad would be in good hands, but also it was such a joy to get to know him and see the kind of fun person he was. I remember growing up in, my dad's side of the family, we were and are very respectful, and it's always like a place where you speak very kindly and respectfully to your grandparents. And I remember the day I had just come back from Spokane. It was one day I was home from college, and Marvin's like, "Spokane, like, what do you do there? Do you raise cows or something?" And I was like, okay, it's like the second most populated city in the state, but at the time I was like, oof, but I realized that's, like others have mentioned, that's his way of just expressing love and trying to get a laugh out of you, really. And I think I needed that, and I still do need that, and thank you, Marvin, for teaching me that.
And raising cows sounds fun.
Yeah.
We have 18 minutes, right? 18 minutes. That's perfect.
That's 18 is high. Life. Lila, you're the luckiest lady in the world, and so blessed. I mean, your granddaughter thinks that the Bright Line in West Palm is sketchy. You haven't, okay, got it. So you haven't been on a New York City subway, have you?
I live there.
Don't talk back to the rep.
Okay.
Oh, she's good. These, your sister's message about the eternity of Marvin, you'll notice in a Jewish cemetery, there are no flowers. And that's by intention. What you will see are a lot of stones. And that's symbolic to the eternity of the soul, as opposed to flowers that after a couple of weeks begin to shrivel away, which I finally figured out the secret why women like flowers. They want us to keep buying them. I got to keep every week. I got to keep restoring, putting fresh flowers. We got to keep the relationship going. We can't just get a stone and say, all right, it's got to be nurtured. But in a cemetery where we are interring a physical body, we're taking the message of the soul, which is eternal. And so when we're in our physical lifetime, we are limited to time and place. When our bodies are put in the ground and it's only our souls, then we're not limited anymore. And though we could have a relationship with Grandpa while we're asleep or wherever we are at any time, and his message is there forever. And as we started off the service, and I think everyone who's in attendance can attest to, with the grandchildren, are going to make sure that that legacy continues forever. And he's in good hands. We're going to continue the service at the graveside. So we'll ask everybody to please rise. The funeral staff will assist with taking the casket out into the hearse. There is a golf cart for those who have difficulty walking. And once we're at graveside there, we will do the El Malei Rachamim, as well as the boys will recite the Kaddish. And so Anyone that can stick around?
Ladies and gentlemen, as the rabbi just mentioned, you're now headed to the graveside. I'm going to ask the family to follow directly behind the casket, and if everybody else can follow behind them. If you came in the limo, return to the limo will take you to the graveside. If you're walking, you can walk. We have golf carts where you can leave your vehicles. For walking out the double doors, make a right, go all the way